got this?
We're good?
Yeah. This is yours? That's nice.
Okay.
Has it started?
Okay.
Okay. Rishos, Isaac. Okay, so we're going to start with the poem that we brought in the previous Kabura from William Butler Yeats. It's called The Second Coming. And it's, we'll start with that and then we'll work from there. So the poem goes as follows. It's really about, he had really weird Christian, mystical, Gnostic-like views of spirituality, so the rest of the poem is pretty outrageous and weird. But this part of the poem has been used as like the banner call for a lot of modern thinkers and a lot of people attempting to rebuild the rubble of modern thought and to try and find some semblance of meaning in a postmodern, somewhat meaningless world of philosophy. So, turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold, and mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. So I want to focus on the center not holding. Meaning the center, according to Yeats, is clearly something that has been lost. And as a result of the loss of this center, which even if we try and understand it in psychological terms, when we feel centered, so everything is connected to a specific point. Everything has a point of reference, and therefore everything is meaningful in its ordered form. Meaning if I have a home and that's my point of reference, so going out to the grocery store and taking my child to nursery and going out to my job are all focused on that center, and therefore they maintain a certain sense of connectivity and unity, and my entire world is compartmentalized in a certain form of oneness. And I feel meaning, and I feel ordered, and I feel that there's a certain rhythm and fluidity to my life. But once that center breaks, and once what we once felt was the unifying source of our life and our meaning and that essential point of standing, once that falls away and it breaks and there's like an earthquake and it opens up, so then mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Anarchy in the sense of meaninglessness, of that there's no significant objective meaning to anything I'm doing, but rather everything is just disparate and broken apart. And at one moment I'm at my work, and at one moment I'm at the grocery store, and then I'm in traffic, and then I go home, and then I'm sitting with this person who's my wife, but once that centering falls away, she's not really my wife, she's an other, I don't really know how far I could connect with her, is there any room for dialogue? All these questions kind of pour into our mind once the center, once the glue that holds together all of our experiences falls away. And that's kind of what Yeats was describing when he says that anarchy is going to come. And for us, as Jews and as people in Western civilization and as human beings in general, we have certain centers. We have certain things that unify our entire lives. And one of them is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one of them is God. For other people it's government, for other people it's education. Each and every person has their own center. The general center, not talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Chas v'Shalom, but the concept of God, lowercase g, uppercase g, whatever you want to call it. God is the centering aspect of a lot of our lives. Civilizations have been built and unbuilt, wars have been fought and ended based on this concept of God, that we're doing what God wants. Because God, in that sense, is the center. It's what connects everything that we do and that we experience to a real fundamental place of certitude. So we'll start with, we'll continue with a really famous line from Friedrich Nietzsche, very often misquoted, very often perverted, and a lot of people like fetishizing it in a sense, and they think that this was like the root of his atheism. It wasn't. It was a significant cultural comment on Christianity at the time, but it's very significant in the sense that it connects to Yeats's poem as well. So I'm reading from now a book from Mark C. Taylor, who's a professor of the head of the philosophy of religion department in Columbia University. He's a real genius, and his books are great. So you're right, standing at the threshold of the 20th century, Nietzsche, one of the most prescient prophets of our time, records the words of the madman. Right? This is Zarathustra in the book of Thus Spoke Zarathustra. He's this madman who runs out of the wilderness after years of being hidden in a cave, and he's finally felt that it's time to express the truth of reality to human beings, and he runs out and yells this.
It's also a song.
Yeah, by Wagner.
Yeah.
Yeah, who they had a very bad old relationship. Fine. So whither is God? So he runs into this marketplace, and there's these innocent people just going about their business, and this madman, Zarathustra, yells out, "Whither is God?" he cried. "I would tell you, we have killed him, you and I. All of us are his murderers. But how did we do this? How did we kill God? How did we drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What were we doing when we unchained the earth from its sun?" Meaning unchained the earth from its sun. The sun is what creates the gravitational pull of the world. It's what creates order. It's what removes us from chaos. Who gave us the strength to get rid of that? Whither is it moving now? Whither are we moving? Away from all the suns? Is there still any up or down? Are we not wandering as through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is not night continually closing in on us? Do we hear nothing as yet of the noise of the grave diggers who are burying God? Do we smell nothing as yet of the divine decomposition? Gods too decompose. God is dead. God remains dead, and we've killed him. So that's a famous line from Nietzsche, that God is dead. There's amazing graffiti. There's a picture of graffiti that goes around online. It's one of these pictures. It's graffiti that says, "God is dead, Nietzsche. Nietzsche is dead, God," which I thought was funny. But anyway, what Nietzsche is saying here is significant. Theologically, Rav Kook. Anyone who wants to, if this is a frightening statement for anyone, just learn Rav Kook and Oros HaEmunah, where he says very directly, "Is kfira diyu emunah." There's a certain denial that is the root source of emunah. So yes, God is dead. Very much God is dead, but it's the lower level of God that we're taught as kindergarten kids, and it's the level of God that most human beings walk around with. But a higher level of God, a higher understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is what we need to enter into. So this death is not necessarily a murder as much as it's a necessary decomposition of previous inappropriate and immature ideas. But that's not what we're going to focus on. Nietzsche says God is dead, and that's the death of the center. That's the death of our essential point of life. Okay? So Mark C. Taylor writes, "With the death of God, there's a loss of center that for centuries have grounded thought, guided judgment, and organized experience. As the sun that has been the light of the world gradually is eclipsed, darkness falls and coldness spreads. No longer certain of either origin or destination, we are left to err, meaning to make mistakes because nothing is right if there's no essential point of objective rightness, through an endless middle that seems to lead nowhere. There's no point of certitude. There's no essentiality. There's no point of essence." Okay? Nietzsche's madman anticipates the cold words of Wallace Stevens' snowman. For the listener, Wallace Stevens writes, who listens in the snow, and nothing himself, beholds nothing that is not there and nothing that is. Meaning the person, the subject, us, after the destruction of the center, after the earth leaves us, after our ground is opened beneath our feet and we no longer know how to assess our lives and to connect ourselves to a certain point of essentiality in our lives. So therefore we are nothing, and what we experience is nothing. And it's a very, very scary, disassociating feeling of wandering, of floating, whatever you want to refer to it as. It's a bad feeling. And that's what happens when the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. So philosophically speaking, this was a pretty modern idea, but the Arizal says the same thing and about how the world came into being. And we believe in such a concept. We believe that there needs to be a decentering. There had to be, in order for human beings to come onto the stage of existence, in order for us to interact with our Creator in the relationship of a giver and a receiver, and for there to be a discrepancy between the true nature of reality, which is Enon Mavada, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ultimate presence, there needed to be an act, a traumatic act of removal, a traumatic act of decentering, of getting rid of that center point of Or Ein Sof. And the Arizal writes in the beginning of Eitz Chaim, V'hinei, the second word, Az tzamtzem es atzmai Ein Sof, the Ein Sof, not HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the first revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was mitzamtzem himself. Everyone knows what Tzimtzum was, right? B'nekuda ha'emsa'es asher boi be'emsa. At the middle point that was there in the middle. Okay? Oro mamish. So skip the parentheses. V'tzamtzem ha'or hahu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu contracted this light. V'nisrachik el tzadei svivos ha'nekuda ha'emsa'es. And removed the light to the sides of that innermost center point. Emsa, again, I circled the words Emsa when he writes it. V'az nishar makom panoi v'avir chalal reikani. And after this act of constriction, after this act of contraction, after this act of tzimtzum, there was left an empty, voided space, kavyachol, menekuda ha'emsa'es mamish, in the middle point, okay? Mamish, kazeh. Okay, and you look at the picture, which is the picture in all the old Eitz Chaims. So the literature on this picture is a lot, because Tzimtzum, we're not getting into a discussion of Tzimtzum, but it's not a removal, chas v'shalom, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but whatever it means to us for the creation and the ability for man to come onto the scene, there had to be a removal of the center, emtsais, center. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu removed the center. That means, homiletically speaking, that our entryway into this world is precipitated by the destruction of that point of essentiality, from the destruction of that center, from the destruction of that glue that holds all meaning together. There needed to be a removal of that center. Just like Yates said, the center cannot hold. So too, lahavdil alef avdalos, the tzimtzum is removing the center. Now things are going to err. Now there's going to be ability to miss. There's going to be ability to wander. There's going to be the ability really for bechira. Bechira is only applicable when a person loses that center, because once HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the revelation of godliness, the revelation of Elokus, which is the real essential nature of reality, once that's removed, so then man could enter into the scene. Then man could err, then man could mistake, and he could also do good, and he could fix, and he could be metakin. But at first there needed to be a tzimtzum of this nekuda ha'emtsas, which is, I want to claim, which is either what Nietzsche would refer to as the death of God, the removal of that centering object, or, as Yates would say, it would be the center that cannot hold. And mere anarchy, which is human history, now comes upon the scene. Okay. So now,
that dot is the makom panoi.
That dot is the makom panoi. But it had to be by nekuda ha'emtsois. That or Ein Sof that was there, it wasn't just all removed, but it was removed from the center point. And the Arizal stresses that.
And created the makom panoi.
Yeah. But again, I mean, in terms of the pshat and what was actually going on, this is not... It's not a Kabbalah shir, but it's not kipshuto chas v'shalom, but it's just how we're going to understand it for now.
I don't quite understand. So if God's removed from the Nekuda and say, how does God exist? I mean, or how does God exist in our world? If we are the Nekuda and say, and that's, I guess, not really a lack of God there. Wasn't the whole point that you need the Nekuda Mitzvah to survive and to function?
Right. So we could definitely talk about it outside of the Chabura, but Tzimtzum is lav kapshuto according to most of the tzaddikim that we follow, and according to most of the tzaddikim that claim otherwise. Rabbi Nachman says in Torah Samach Dal that it's a stira that we can't explain, and we live within the Chalal HaPanui, which on the one hand needs to be empty and devoid of the presence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu in order for there to be a significant ego presence of the human being as a self-sufficient being, but at the same point, there also needs to be the presence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu there at all times, like we know that Malik Kalam and Soviv Kalam and V'leis Asar Panim Minei. So Rabbi Nachman says that's the stira of the Chalal HaPanui, and that's where we live. So I can't really answer your question, but I could give you a lot of makoros, but that's not going to be... All we need to know right now about the Tzimtzum, again, it's not a Kabbalah shir, is that the Tzimtzum had to take place dafka by the Nekuda ha'emtsais, the middle point, because in order for human beings to have the ability to make mistakes and wander, and then to try and regain that connection to the middle point, it needed to be removed. Okay? Okay, so now we're left, right, without a middle, without a center. So comes onto the scene the concept of a tzaddik, comes onto the scene of Yosef a tzaddik. The midah of the tzaddik, the midah of Yosef, is to search and to be doresh and to dig until he finds, again, that point of essentiality, okay? That point, that middle point, that center. We're put onto the world without a center. We're thrown into a world of bechira, of a battle of good and bad, a battle of hiddenness and presence. And our job is to refine that center and to reorganize and to recenter our lives, to connect every aspect of our lives to that nekuda hapnimis, like the Sfas Emes says all the time, which he never explains what it is, but in every parsha the Sfas Emes says at least 4 or 5 times that everything has a nekuda hapnimis, everything has a nekuda hapnimis. So there's that essential point of essentiality, which you can't explain, as we'll go later on. There's no words for it. It's ineffable. It's a sod. It's a secret. That point, the yesod of everything, the foundation of everything, is a secret. It has to be hidden because the revelation of the thing is how we perceive the thing. But deep within the thing itself is that point of essentiality. I don't mean to be too obscure, so we'll use the makoros. So the Sfas Emes in Parshas Noach, he writes, Elu told us Noach ish tzaddik. So B'Zohar Kadosh, Noach is Shabbos. Noach is the Bechina of Shabbos. The Isa, for it's written in the Zohar, Man did natar bris, a person who's shomer his bris, ikri tzaddik, is referred to as a tzaddik, a righteous person. Perish. Perish bris, his kashrus kol habriya b'shayrasho. The concept of a bris, the concept of a sign, the concept of a covenant, right? Or as we know, bris milah, or the midah of yesod, the midah of a tzaddik, is the ability to be makasher, the entire bria, to reconnect all of bria to its shoresh, to its initial place of departure, to its essential point of departure, okay? Because everything has the shoresh hapnimi. Ki kol davar yesh lo shoresh lamala. Because everything has a real essential source. It doesn't mean high or above, but everything has deep within it, all physicality has within it, a point that makes it significant, a point that is the ikr of it. The ikr, not the tafel. There's the representation of a thing, and there's the thing in and of itself. There's etzem, and then there's giloy. The giloy, the revelation of the thing, is not what we're trying to find anymore. We're trying to remove ourselves from the mirage of the giluyim of things, from the revelation of things that, as they express themselves to the sensual perception of a human being, and to dig deeper and to find the etzem. The etzem is the nekuda hapnimius of it. Okay, and everything has a shoresh. V'chein ha'adam shu moshel al kol mashab aretz. When a person is in control of everything on the aretz, kemamar David HaMelech, like David HaMelech says, kol shasa tachas raglav, u'kevimasha shomer kocho shelo la'ashbiya koach rak b'chol davar shayach alav. So this nekuda that the Sfas Emes says is very important. Why is it that the bris, the midah of bris, the midah of the ability to be makasher to the nekuda hapnimis, why is it that we need shmira there? Why is there this concept of shmira sabris? Why is there this concept of intense guarding of that connectivity? Because the midah of a person is to connect to things. But the nature of the world is that the center, the essentiality of the things that we need to connect to are hidden. The it of something, right? When a person says, I get it, what is that it? We can't define what it is, but at the same point, we need to connect to it. And if we connect to the things that look like it, or that smell like it, or that seem to be the significance of that thing, we'll be lost, because we're not really connecting ourselves to the essentiality of it. We're not getting it. We're not getting to the core of the thing. Okay? And that's why we need to be shomer ourselves, because connectivity, humans need connectivity. We need to connect to things. And if we can't find that middle point, if we can't find that center, the etzem of it, so we're going to connect to the tafel of it. We're going to connect to the things that are not it, and then that's gullus. When a person is not connecting to the essential point, when a person is not in Eretz Yisrael, which is Emsiusa de Olam, right? Eretz Yisrael is the middle point of the world, that point of reorganization, that point of recentering. When a person is not in Eretz Yisrael, he's in gullus. When a person doesn't get the ikr of something, he's in gullus. And when we say that someone's missing the point in English, that's a really heavy claim against that person, because you're saying that I'm trying to give over something to you, and there's an essentiality to it, and you're not getting it. You're getting the picture of it, you're getting the mirage of it, but you're not getting what I'm trying to give over to you. Because real dialogue, real conversation, as we'll see, is connecting. It's all about dveikus, it's all about hiskashrus. A kesher is only when it's to the real thing and not some other thing. Okay, and that's why we need to be shomer the bris, because the bris is what connects us to the real thing. And if we connect to something that's not real, and we connect to things that are nochri, that are strange, and that are zar, and that are other, so we're going to miss out on connecting to the real significance and the essentiality of that thing in and of itself. Yeah? Tough. So
this is why, I guess, like, more in the... Like in Judaism, it's so strong on making guards in sexual area and all that stuff, because it corresponds to this, what you're saying.
Exactly, and sexuality beprat, because if you look at the Nachash, the first... Freud wasn't wrong. Freud wasn't wrong in saying that everything is rooted in sexual deviancy. He wasn't wrong. He wasn't right either. But the Nachash came onto the scene. The first pitoy, the first seduction, which means external manipulation of yourself, came from the Nachash, and it was a sexual manipulation. It was, because... Gilei Arayos is, when it's stripped to its core, is connecting to the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. It's the inability to connect to your zivug. Your zivug is your thing. Your zivug is the one person you're supposed to be mukasher to, and when you connect to something else, it's Gilei Arayos. Erva is revealing something that shouldn't be revealed. Because that's why the Isser, all the shmiros that cover all these inyanim is called Yichud, Hilchos Yichud, because min alav you can know the Cain, because the yichud is what we're trying to do. When there's real connectivity, and when there's real dialogue, when there's real connection between the thing in and of itself, as opposed to the external representations of things. And that's why there has to be so much shmir, and that's what we're trying to cultivate a yichud. So that's why the tzaddik is someone who's shomer that bris, someone who's able to connect to that thing and that thing alone. And the Beis Yaakov says also, he says in similar terms, I cut off the first line by accident, but basically what he's saying is that the midah of Yesod is called tzaddik and it's called Yesod because it could connect to kol davar, rak es ha-yesod ha-pnimi. The midah of Yesod is connecting to the Yesod ha-pnimi. Yesod again means foundation as well. The foundation is what keeps the thing going. It's the Even HaShasiyah, right? It's the unifying source, okay? V'lo ha-klipa shasviva. And not to connect to the shell that's surrounding it. And the shells can be beautiful. Don't be confused here with the klipos that we hear about that are negative, or klipos that we hear about that are manipulative or malevolent. Malevolent forces, right? Over here we mean klipa, we mean just the shell, an outer shell. Everything is an outer shell. Our bodies are outer shells. Bottles are outer shells to the liquid. So you could connect to this bottle over here and think that this is the thing in and of itself, but that would be wrong. That would be very wrong. So a person can't connect to the klipa of something. L'chein hu kol his kashrus v'his ha'olamos v'habruim ha'yedei midas Yosef HaTzadik. Therefore, all connectivity and spirituality, all holy connection, is dafka through this midah of Yosef HaTzadik. And we see dafka by Yosef HaTzadik that he was able to be shomer himself. He was able to prevent himself in a very strong way from connecting to anything that wasn't essential to him. Even when when Eshes Potifar said that, no, I am shaykh to you, right? We know the Medrash says that she saw Lasid Lava, that there would be some sort of connection, so she thought it was an essential connection, and Yosef was still able to be shomer that. He said, no, I know that there's an essentiality. He got it. He knew the innermost point of things, and he wasn't swayed by the klipa of something. And that's the midah of Yosef, and Yosef is able to be megalel mafreya. Retroactively, you could say that everything that seemed to be an inappropriate connection, like a Jew in Mitzrayim, like the tzaddik in Abor, like the tzaddik in Galus, is all real. It's all the real essential connectivity there because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mizdam in that. So Yosef saw the essential connection and everything, and he was able to be makasher himself to the Nekuda HaPnimis, which is why he's able to be poter chalomos. We're told that dreams are a combination of foolishness, a combination of wastefulness, and also a garin, a seed of truth. Yosef HaTzadik is able to be poter the chalom because he's able to point out the seed of truth. He's able to point out and connect himself to the essentiality of the dream. That's the midah of Yosef HaTzadik. And that's the ikr. He's able to connect to the ikr. So look at something amazing in the next makor from the Hakdama to the Tikkunei Zohar. Okay? V'kuliya parchen min rukiya. And all of these things stem forth from the rukiya. V'dat tzadik chaya olamim. And this is the midah of the tzaddik, who's the life of the worlds. Dimine parchen nishmasin tzadikaya. And from there, from this midah of yesod, from this midah of connectivity, comes the neshamas of the tzaddikim. V'naharim b'sehira v'alayuksiv. And on them it's written, V'yitenu sam Elokim b'Rakiya HaShemayim. And that they're placed in the Rakiya of the Shemayim, because the Rakiya means the Yesod. The Rakiya means that midah of his kashrus. Okay? The Ihu Rakiya. And this midah of Yesod, this midah of Tzaddik, is called Rakiya. Dihu la'el michiven. That's higher than even the whiteness. Have'u dechsev. Umimal Rakiya ashal rosham. And it's higher than the Rakiya on their heads. So listen to this. The Hipuch Rakiya. And the opposite form of the letters of a Rakiya, of the midah of Yesod, B'tishkach le'ikr. And you'll find ikr. The midah of Rakiya is the midah of ikr. The midah of Yesod is being makasher himself to the ikr of something. Not the tafel, but to the ikr, that essential point. The thing that makes the thing important. The thing that gives the thing its place in this world. It could be in a relationship, it could be in learning a sefer, it could be in conversation, it could be in anything. But a person needs to connect to the ikr.
And that's like the center, what that we're talking about?
Yeah.
That's the Nakuda of the center that you were referring to?
Yeah, it's the thing that makes it significant. It's the thing that grounds it. It's essential to the thing. It's the primary aspect of it. It's what
What's the Hebrew term for that?
Ikr, emtza, matara, the purpose. Tachlis. Everything is a tachlis. Tachlis is a good word for it.
Is that similar or the same thing to what Nachman talks about in the first Torah in the Maran?
Yeah.
That's what he's referring to?
Exactly.
Okay.
I was going to bring it as a makor. Hold on, so we should bring, what does Rabbi Nachman say? He says, Tzarich tamid lehistakel b'seichel sheish b'chol davar. Right, there's a seichel in everything. And that's the Chachma, Rabbi Nachman says. There's a Nakuda of Chachma, which is really the Nakuda of Moach in it, the Nakuda of spirituality in it, which makes that thing a thing that's worthy of being in the world. And for me to connect to it, for me to regain my center, for me to recenter myself, I need to connect to that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but even like on a practical level, like if you let's say you open a newspaper tomorrow, and there's all these articles and there's all this information in front of you, and it's overwhelming, right? And you don't know what's important and what's not important, but you kind of you are able to kind of train your eye to kind of look through things and try to see, this event is presented this way, but really if you look through the seichel of it, and you look through the tachlis of it, and the matara, whatever you want to call it, that it's really not this, but it's this. There's really much more going on behind it.
Exactly.
And being able to peer through the veneer that is basically put up to us by the media or our culture or whatever, and be able to penetrate these things. And like Yosef did in Mitzrayim, the same Nakuda, like to be able to uncover what is really important for us here in this, so to speak, Mitzrayim, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's connecting to the essentiality, that something here is essential. And it's generally a simplifying process. It's generally removing all the excess klipa and finding that primary aspect of something, which is why the Tikkun Zohar says the midah of Yesod is makasher itself to the ikr of something. It can't be more clear than that. It can't be more mefurish than that there's an ikr, that there's something that's fundamental here. Okay?
How do you think this connects to like tzaddik we know or see, or like
Objectivity.
person?
Simply
Okay.
objectivity.
The
For me
Rebbe,
personally,
Mhm.
any tzaddik that I've ever connected to, and Rafi and I have spoken about this, so there's a certain sense of objectivity. We're thrown into the world of subjectivity because we have no center, because we don't know how to connect to things, and because we connect to everything we shouldn't connect to, and we connect to a myriad of different things without connecting to any significant point of essentiality to it. When you come to a tzaddik, there's
Get
a
right to it.
simplicity where he peers into you and reconnects you to that shoresh. And Amcha Kulam Tzaddikim, we all have that ability to connect to the essential aspect, to cut down to the core of the issue. I think that's what you see in a tzaddik. And a real tzaddik, I don't think, Hema Bakshu Cheshbonos Rabos. We're the ones who ask for all the Cheshbonos, right? But a real tzaddik is Yasha. A real tzaddik is able to go directly to the Nekudah HaPnimis. And the Hepech of Iker is Kara also, Kriya, tearing. So when we can't find the Iker, we're tearing. We're tearing everything and searching and searching and searching for that point. But all we're doing is tearing, which is why we tear Kriya when someone dies, because we feel that our center has been pulled out from under our feet. So we tear, because we recognize that right now I can't find the Iker. I can't find the Nekudah HaPnimis in my life right now, because right now my life is centerless and I'm floating without any place to actually feel any feeling of place, of home, of... You're thrown into gullus. You're thrown into movement, into the midbar, into placelessness, and therefore that's kriya, that's torn, and you're torn asunder from that ikr. But you have to be mahapich, like the tzaddikim tell us. The shoresh of it's all in the osios. You have to be mitzarif again, the word kriya into ikr. You have to find within that tear the ikr, because generally that place of pain, that place of feeling torn apart, is where the ikr is. Because that's just how you get through it. You have to dig and dig. That's why Yosef had to be thrown into a bore, and that's why Yitzchak Avinu had to dig and dig and dig to find Mayim Chaim. It's all about digging. He had to dig for it. He had to go.
It was about the process. It was about the process. That's what you're saying?
No, that's how we're going to connect this to Purim. I think the process being important is a different idea that's revealed later on. But right now we're talking about the matara itself being important. Very much so. The process.
How do you get to the matara? Like, when you get stuck, how to process it to the matara? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, Stam. We're not the matara. We're focusing on the matara now. The
Okay.
process itself is a whole. It could be a whole different. It could be a whole different shir, a whole different chabura. But we'll see, because on Purim there's a hipach of this idea. This idea is hard in the sense that it tells us that there is a matara to everything. There is a tachlis, and that not everything is holy and kadosh, but rather there are things in the world that will make you miss the point of things, and you have to dig deep to find that point. But we're saying about the process being holy and everything being part and parcel of the tachlis itself, that's a different idea, so which we'll get to though. So in this next makor, the Ramak, we're not going to read it inside, but basically the midah of Yesod, the midah of his kashrus, is also referred to as a keshet. It's also referred to in Sfarim as a bow and arrow. Because when we talk about chet, right? Famous idea a lot of people have heard when they were kids. Chet doesn't mean sin in the Protestant
Christian.
idea of it, the Protestant ethic that you're sinning and you're giving power to the evil forces, but rather sin, the shorish of sin is l'hachtia samatara, to miss the point, to overshoot the point. All chet of Adam Harishon, chet, all the chatoyim, is the inability to connect to the essential point, the inability to connect to the Ratzon Hashem, which is the center of our lives. When we miss out on the Ratzon Hashem, when we're machtia the matara, when we're machtia the nekuda hapnimis, so we err and we sin and we disconnect ourselves. And we have no das, because das is the shorish of the yesod, right? Das is the same, the das of the higher world becomes the yesod of the lower world. Okay? Because das is one and the same as Yesod. Adam yada es chava. Adam knew his wife, which means Adam connected to his wife. A person knows something is when a person connects to the essentiality of the thing. A person can know something in the derech of chachma. A person can know the pratim of something in the derech of bina. But a person will only truly recognize the essentiality of something with the ability to throw away the excess information when he's yadea, when he's yodea, when he knows it, when he's da kani. Right, the midah of a kinyan, the midah of connecting to something and making it yours is das. Da kani, the Yerushalmi says, ma chaser. If you have das, so you're not lacking anything because you have everything kolol in one small point. Okay? Da chaser ma kani. If you're missing das, you could have everything in the world and you're not having anything because you're missing the essential point of it. Without the essential point, you have nothing. It's all about das. And that's Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman's Torahs. This is the midah of Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman talks so much about Shmir Sabris and Shmir Sadibur and Diburim Kadoshim because Dibur, as we'll see, is very makosher to the midah of Yesod, like we'll see from the Sefer Yetzirah. And speaking also, it has to, just like a keshet shoots an arrow, it has to be Yoreh Kechetz. It has to go directly to the bullseye. When we're shooting arrows, it has to go directly to the innermost point, and anything else is missing. It has to be Yoreh Kechetz, towards that Nekuda HaPnimis.
Somebody who lacks that ability lacks das. That
Yep.
person. And even though that person may seem to have a tremendous amount of X, Y, and Z, they don't have it because they have no fundamental kavana in their life.
Exactly. And you can find a lot of people who have chachma and bina and midos tovos, but without das, there's no connection to anything. There's no binyan, there's no karka. And that's why the shorish of all chatoim is the chet of the Eitz HaDas. Chet, to miss the point. Adam Harishon missed the point of how to connect to das. He missed the point of connecting to das. Okay, so the Sefer Yetzirah, in Parak Aleph Mishnah Gimel, famous idea also.
Sorry, this is a little bit off topic, maybe a lot off topic. Just because you mentioned it, how does the tree symbolize missing the das? In other words, what does the tree, what does eating from the tree have anything to do with missing the point?
So it's a drush, first off. That's my own interpretation of Chet Eitz HaDas, but it's rooted in a whole understanding of...
I'm not questioning, I'm wondering.
No, which is fine. It's a whole sugya. Just about what Adam Harishon was supposed to do with the Eitz HaDas, what he was supposed to do with the Eitz HaChaim, and when he was supposed to eat from the Eitz HaDas. If he had waited, if he had understood the essential point of everything, so then he would have done it properly. By virtue of the fact that he was Achal Pagan, that he rushed into it, clearly shows that he misunderstood the significance and the process that Das was supposed to have in his life, and therefore he missed it. He didn't do anything necessarily bad, he just missed the point. And ever since then we've been cursed to miss the point. And the direct result of that is that Adam Harishon is going to plant. You're going to plant and you're going to assume that because you plant you're going to see roots, but what's going to happen? You're going to miss it. You're not going to get plants back, you're going to get thorns back.
Miss what?
He's going to miss. Adam Harishon expected an essential movement. He was going to plant, and a plant was going to grow back. But the curse is that because of Eitz HaDas, because you lack the das, because you lack the ability to connect to the essentiality of something, so midah connected midah, you're going to plant, and you're not going to get the essential thing from the seed itself, but you're going to get thorns. You're going to get the klipa of the seed. You're going to get everything that's not the seed. But in terms of the Chet Eitz HaDas, so again, yeah, it's...
I mean, but in the Torah already, you see Eitz HaChaim versus Eitz HaDas Tov Ra. It's already making a chilukim between two things, versus in Eitz HaChaim is one thing.
But they're the same thing.
No.
Aren't they?
What, the two trees?
Yeah,
They're
they're just two trees.
Well,
The way you look at something
point is
is you look at something and there's either what it is or there's this opinion on what it is and that opinion on what it is. So Pre-sin, it was the Eitz Chaim. That's what it was. It was a tree of life. That's all it was. It wasn't anything else. After the sin, it was an Eitz Daas Tov Ra. Now there were different opinions about it. So he might be right. He might be right. There's no Iker answer now. There could be bad. There could be good. But there's two answers versus one. I mean, that's how I view it and the essence of something. There's one answer. There's no two answers to something. That's, I think, what the Essentiality, the Iker of something is. It means that this is it. There's nothing else. The second you start to make a drush on something and give it this and that, you're already missing the point. But if there's one answer to something, then that's already the Iker of what that is in terms of something, in terms of a thing.
Maybe there's like one essential aspect, one answer. I don't know. I feel like one answer
Meaning,
says that.
This is a bottle. So in terms of this bottle, it's a bottle.
Or that.
There you go. There's your answer.
Right.
You just answered it.
No, that's my point.
Exactly.
But that's not.
That's the world we live in. That's the world we live in now.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. Is my point.
It's not bad. It's just
bad.
missing.
There's
It's just missing it. Again, chayt is not bad. It's not. To say something's objectively bad is again to say that we have a center of what dictates the objectivity of something being good or bad.
Right.
It's exactly the opposite. We no longer know what's good or what's bad.
So there's like, I always love to compare Yehuda and Yosef, and Yosef seems like this guy who's like got it all figured out. Like, like this is good, this is bad, this is essential, this is tarfus. Like,
You're saying good. You're saying really good. That's
right,
how
and Yehuda's world is like completely the opposite.
You're
Like,
saying really good.
should I sell
Very
Yosef?
complicated.
Should I not? Should I sleep with her?
Yehuda is the world of Purim. We're gonna
Right.
we're gonna end with Yehuda. We're gonna end with returning to Yehuda. But right now we're dealing. You're right. This is the midah of Yosef. The midah of Yosef is
He's
not
like a star
Bris,
guy.
and he's doing the mitzvos, and he's the tzaddik meikara. He's the person who knows the essentiality of everything. We're gonna get to all this. Let's go to the Mishnah in Sefer Yitzirah. Parak Aleph Mishnah Gimel. Eser Sfiras Belima. Mispar Eser Etzbos. Chamesh Keneged Chamesh. Ubris Yachid Mechavin Be'emtza. There's one bris. There's one iskashrus. B'milas halashon and b'milas hamor. Connected to speech and connected to the bris hamila. Okay, so those are two places of connectivity. We speak to people and we connect to them through dialogue, or we connect to our wives, we connect to the people we're supposed to be with, right? And that's bris, that's connectivity. So both of those are connected to each other. So listen to the words of Rabbi Nachman. Because again, a person, the tachlis of speech, the tachlis of dialogue, the tachlis of attempting to mitigate the distance between two subjects, which is really what conversation is supposed to be essential. I say a word, and you should understand what I'm trying to give over in that word, and you should understand the intentions of that word. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. We say a lot of words that lack essentiality, that lack significance, and there's confusion, and we're misinterpreted, and we're misunderstood, and that's why fighting begins, and that's where milchama comes from, and that's where the lack of shalom comes from. It all comes from the inability to be shomer our words, to be shomer the bris halashon, to be shomer the essentiality of our words, to weigh our words, which you see in a tzaddik also. Tzaddik is someone who weighs his words. He knows to say the right word. A milah tova, a good word. Tova is the midah of yesod, it's the midah of connectivity. So listen to Rabbi Nachman. This is in Torah Chavtes. Kiloi kol dibor nikra dibor. All speech is not actual speech. There's speech that's not speech. Ki dibor she'eno nishbam v'neskabel, eno nikra dibor. Because words that are spoken, dialogue, siach, when the other person is not getting you, when the other person is not listening to you, he's obviously hearing you physically. He's obviously nodding his head at you, but he's not getting you. He's not listening to you. That's not nikra dibor. That's not speech. Bechinas ein omer ve'ein devarim b'li nishma kolam. That there's no speech and there's no words without the hearing of their voices. Meaning, unless a person truly hears you and hears what you're really trying to say, there's no conversation.
How is what the person hears dependent on what you do?
Because our words are not for us.
Okay.
Our words are not for us. Our words are for the other. So the significance of our words is going to be gauged by the acceptance or the response that they conjure up.
So right. So
I mean,
if
once
they're not understood by the person listening, then they're just for you. So it's not really a dibor.
It's not real dibor, yeah. Or it's just that your words. It could be something that it's going to be rooted in the speaker. It's something the speaker hasn't done properly. He hasn't chosen his words properly. There's no essentiality to the words he's saying. He may be speaking the Dvarim B'Telem. He may be saying the words that are not needed to be heard. He could be speaking very significant, beautiful, poetic lines and soliloquies, but at the same point, the person hearing them does not need to hear that. That's not what he needs, and therefore he's not going to hear those words.
If you think of the bris solution, it's going to be bris mila. When we talk about your kechetz, if you send an arrow and it misses the mark, you don't play the bullseye.
Right.
So in the same way, if it's bris lashon, and each word is a chetz. If it doesn't get to its destination, then it's not the fault of the person who's hearing it.
The Ramak says that. The Ramak says beferish that each word has to be kechetz. It needs to be like an arrow, and it needs to go directly to the person. Which is why you find by tzaddikim, one of the shvachim that people gave to tzaddikim is that whenever they spoke, you felt like they were speaking directly towards you. There could have been 1,000 people in the room, but you felt that they were speaking directly towards you. Unlike today, where there's sermons.
There was a lot of trouble with this.
It's not dibur. It's that there's connectivity, that the tzaddik was able to makasher himself to you with those words. He knew the right word.
That's the Mona Lisa, though. Mona Lisa's she's looking at everybody.
Right.
But you're saying that
They also
that it's
say
not.
that he was really a
Checking
guy
everybody
also.
out.
You're saying that it's not that there's the essentiality of the speech that's so much toward the nekuda ha'nisai that it essentially relates to the nekuda
But
ha'nisai
it's
that's
not, because it's let down.
inside of each person.
It's obviously not let down.
Like that's the
I think that
That's
that's
the
the das of
that's
the
kasha.
das of the das of the
That's the das of the
everybody
tzaddik.
there is
Wow.
as if he
There's also people that he, with the Lavash Rebbe, that they like spoke without speaking.
Rav Kook also, all tzaddikim. Lubavitch Rebbe is not. I mean, he's unique, but he's not unique. So if I could say such a thing, I think I can. I'm not Chabad. Tzaddikim. I'm saying tzaddik. I don't doubt that Rav Kook could do the
He
same
was like the
exact
tzaddik
thing.
of the tzaddikim.
Yeah, I mean,
Rav
yeah,
Kook?
he was. No,
Like
Lubavitch
Bob Shreddy.
Stam, but every
Yeah.
tzaddik, I think there's a midah of all tzaddikim. This is far written about like people, academics and kofrim who visited tzaddikim. That every tzaddik had the ability to. He put das in his words. He made his words tov. They were milim tovim. They were milim amitim that spoke to people.
Seth has to go, but can we get a Mila from you? A Dibor? Your thoughts on
Dibor?
this? Yeah.
On the spot? This is unbelievable. You've earned a
Said too
disciple
much.
tonight in me. It's really amazing.
Thank you. Okay, so let's continue with Rabbi Nachman. Ein omer ve'ein demarim b'li nishma kolam.
Linish McCoylan.
Ve'ikar mashen es kaval dibor. So what makes dibor an actual dibor? Hu machmas hatov sheyesh bo. Tov, it's the goodness of it. A good word, tov, again, means the midah of the tzaddik. Yosef was tov. Yosef was tov. Tov is gematria 17. I mean, forget the gematria. Tov. It means that he put himself into the word. He put essentiality into the word. Ki tov hakol chafetzim. Everybody wants that tov. Everybody wants to connect to the tov of the tzaddik. The alkain, kishiyesh tov b'hadibor. When there's tov in the dibor, azay hadibor nishma v'niskabel. Then the person, the listener, the makabel, the other can accept it and let it impact him. Aval kishe'ein tov b'dibor. When there's no tov in the dibor, ein niskabel. It's not going to be miskabel. It's not going to be heard. Ve'ein osim ve'ech osim hatov b'dibor. So how do we make a dibor tov? Dr. Binachman, al yidei shadloichim hadibor mehadas. When we take the dibor from that power of das, from that power of connecting, when we take it from that midah of das, that connects everything to its essential source, that's how the meal is going to be heard. Azay yesh bo tov. Then it's beautiful. Aval kisha hadibor below das, when a person speaks without das, azay ein bo tov. It's not tov. The bechinas gam belay das nefesh lo tov. Without das, there's no good. Nefesh hu adibor. The nefesh is the dibor, like the pasuk says, "V'yeh adam lenefesh chai." V'targum mo l'ruach mamal. Like Uncle says that the power, the essential koach of a person is his ability to speak.
Wow, yeah.
So the nefesh is not tov when it doesn't have das. Words, just like the yesod, the tzaddik has the ability of the bris halashon and the bris hamor. We need to be shomer our words, just like we're shomer our bris. We have to count our words like we guard ourselves. Because real dialogue, which is a lost art, the lost art of dialogue, and I'm victim to that, we're all victims to that. There is no dialogue, and it's possible that dialogue is an impossibility. But what we can try and do is try and find the right words so that maybe there might be a roshem of real dialogue. But real connectivity, real siach, Isaac, you told me that I think is Mashiach, Messiach. There's a real There's real dibor. I told this to Rafi the other day, and it's a Torah that keeps resonating with me. It's not a Torah. The Gemara in Brachos in Gimel Amud Aleph says that there's shlosha mishmaros l'layla. There's 3 signs of the night, and the Svarim tell us that represents Golus. So the first siman is that the chamor noar, that the donkey neighs. The next siman is that kalavim tzoakim, that dogs are barking, dogs are yelling. The last siman is either a tinok yonek mishteimo, a child is nursing from his mother, or isha misaparas bala, her husband is talking to his wife. So the deepest dark of Golus, there's going to be an orchozer of Mashiach. There's going to be a hint to what Mashiach is going to be. And what is that? It's conversation. It's talking to your wife. It's talking to others. It's talking to people and sitting and talking. And Rashi says, Beferish, she says, those who sit together and talk together, it could be a husband and wife, it could be other people, but they talk, and that's the siman of the coming Geula, that there's actual siach. Hashem sefasai tiftach ufi yogiti lasecha. Hashem, open up my boundaries and let me speak. Let me connect to you through speech. That's the power of tefillah, because tefillah is lokech mi'adibur also. That's why a tzaddik is able to be mispalel. Tefillah is the mid of a tzaddik. So that's why it has to be bedas. So I'm not going to read this whole last part of the Eitz Chaim, but the Arizal here says, so what's the klipa? What's bad in the world? What comes from the Cheder Tzadas? So the Zohar tells us that El Acher Sarisbo. That God Kavyachol castrates El Acher. He gets rid of the yesod of El Acher, of the negative side. He gets rid of that ability to connect. Why? Because in Kedusha, there's 3 mochen. We're not going to go into it, but there's Chachma, Bin, and Das, and we have Das. But in Klipa, there's no Das, and therefore there's no Pirya Varivya, there's no creation, there's no movement, there's no going above or growing. All there is static negativity. Negativity is only static, or it will take you down. Okay, so bad. And Ra, how is Ra described? It's that it has no yesod. It has no ability to connect. It has no midah of das. It has no ability of his kashrus. It can't connect to that center point, and all it attempts to do is to uncenter us, is to throw us back into that tohu v'vohu of decenteredness, which is what Amalek wants to do. Amalek, we're told, took the bris milah of Bnei Yisrael, threw it up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says, Tu'am masha b'charta. Take what you've chosen. What does it mean when someone chooses something? It means that he's connecting to the essentiality of that thing. A chaver, a friend, means that I was bocher him. It's the same osios. It means that I found the nakuda of essentiality in him that I want to connect to. Chaverim makshivim. Friends could listen. Why? Like Rabbi Nachman said, because friends could only listen when there's das, when there's connectivity. Because without das, without connectivity, there's no listening. All there is speaking. In order for there to be listening, there has to be das and his chabras. And that's chibor and his chabras and chaverim and Amalek told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're trying to connect to something, you're trying to be bocher something? No, take it back. Take the yesod back. Take the hiskashas back. Take that midah out of the world. And we're destroying that on Purim. On Purim we're saying, we're not necessarily destroying it, what we're doing is what you were saying. This midah of Yosef, this midah of the yesod, this midah of hiskashas to the nekuda hapnimis, of the emtsoyas of everything, is the midah of Shisaf Eshanim Dehave Alma. It's the midah of the 6 days of the week. It's the midah of Yesod, which is the midah of Kol. It's our avoda nowadays. Vasilavo, it's the midah of David HaMelech. David HaMelech is the Baal Tshuva. The Baal Tshuva is the avoda of Purim. On Purim, there's no need to connect to the Nekuda HaPnimis of everything because it's revealed, in a sense, Nichnas Yain Yatsa Sod. Sod is this concept of Yesod. Sod is when something is secret, it means that there's an essentiality between me and that thing. I could speak sod out all day. I could talk about secrets, but if it doesn't remain a secret, that means it's not an essential secret. If it remains a secret even after I spoke about it, it means that there's such a deep connection, and it's so essential to me that I can't reveal it to the other, that even when I speak it out, you don't know it. And that's a true sod. That's a sod be'etzem, like the Svarim say. And on Purim, that comes out. How could that come out on Purim? Because when a person's drunk, Chazal tell us, when lamado mehashikar, what is a drunk person like? It's kol ha'olam k'meshor. The entire world seems very straight to him. Because ha'adam, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam Yashar. On the Zman of Purim, the Zman of L'Asilava, when the midah of Yosef is not sholet, when we're drunk and we can't connect to the essential point of everything, it's because everything is real to be essential. When a person is drunk, and we all know this from experience, everything is important. I could be talking to a lamppost if I'm drunk like goat. I could be talking to other friends, and I feel like I'm giving over my guts.
So that's like the story of Purim is like all bets are off. Like we don't even have any clue of how this Yeshua is going to happen, and Mordechai just goes out there and like I'm just gonna connect to everything and like spread my thing my net really big and like make investments with the king and like hopefully it'll all work out.
Yeah, that's the story of Purim if you go into the pratim of it. But Purim in and of itself right now, let's say, is the opposite of this idea. All other days of the year we need to connect to the essentiality. Purim is the day where we say to Amalek, you want to tell us that there's no bris, you want to tell us there's no yesod? Tov, we'll be balei tshuva. We'll connect to everything. Instead of saying to Amalek, no, we'll really connect to the innermost point, we'll say, Tov, you want to take away that innermost point from us? We'll reveal that everything is significant, and everything is essential, and everything is tachlis. Like Rabbi Nachman says that everything is tachlis. And when a person's drunk, we all know that every dibur is dibur.
Shikoyach.
You know?
That answers his question, your question from the beginning.
Tough.
Boy.
Your
Money.
comment.